Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm pleased to be joined by my friend Amy Schofield, who is a Navy spouse. Her husband is actually on terminal leave, so that's why she has such a big smile on her face because they're currently going through transition. And the funny thing about Amy is that she has been with NMSN since the very beginning, because I think you were one of our very first members, and then you were also for the longest time one of our experts, and we miss you. So I'm so happy to have you back, Amy.
Thanks, Sue. I'm excited to be here. I always love NMSN.
And we have been having the best time catching up. But if you have not read Amy's highlights, please go back and read that. But there's so much information I want to get out of Amy before like the interview's over that we're just going to jump right in. Amy, so no warm-ups here. I've often heard a statistic that men apply for jobs when they meet 60% of the qualifications, while women tend to only apply for jobs if they meet 100% of the qualifications. As a resume writer and HR professional, do you find this to be true?
Right. So statistics are always so eye-opening, aren't they? And I think this correlates with salary negotiation trends as well. And for some reason, women just tend to be more apprehensive overall during the entire job search process, especially when applying to jobs they don't perceive to be qualified for, even if they are qualified. And it really is just a perception, right? I think it boils down to the gender gap, but also depends on the industry, type of job, and career level. For example, stay-at-home parents and military spouses who tend to move around a lot and have to reinvent themselves, that lowers the 60% statistic you just cited probably holds true. And I think it has a lot to do with how they are perceived, they feel they're perceived on their resume with all of those gaps or changes in their career or taking time off throughout their career. And having numerous jobs or numerous gaps. And because of those gaps, some people feel like they shouldn't apply to a job if they don't meet 100% of the qualifications. But when I work with resume clients, I do my best to instill confidence, and it really is about your confidence in the entire job search process, all the way from that statistic you shared with applying to jobs through the salary negotiation. And I really work with them, and I strongly urge everybody to draw out your transferable skills so that you have confidence to apply to jobs that you might not think you're 100% qualified. And you'd be surprised that you actually are 100% qualified for most jobs when you pull out your transferable skills.
So we actually have an example of this because you're actually an outlier. I love your story about applying to the HR position with a defense contractor, even though you had no prior experience. I mean, it was even better when you were actually hired for that job. I mean, what pushed you to do that? And what would you tell people out there who are, on the fence about applying for a job that's maybe way outside their comfort zone? Maybe it's because it's in a different industry or it's something they have no experience in.
Right, so that's a great question. And this was really early on in my career. So talk about outside my comfort zone. I had just moved to Pensacola, Florida. It was 3 or 4 days before Hurricane Ivan hit and completely destroyed the entire city. So I wound up going to work at a temp job at the Red Cross because the only places that were hiring down there were the Red Cross, temporary FEMA grants, or construction workers. And I'm not cut out for that. I don't quite have those skill sets. So I was working at the Red Cross on a temporary FEMA grant, and my boss at the Red Cross was actually the one who heard about this other HR position available at a local defense contractor, and she urged me to apply because she knew the temporary FEMA grant I was working under was going to be ending soon. And she had told me that out of all the FEMA grant employees, I was the one who demonstrated that I could handle any task that came my way. I was detail oriented. I had the skill set to learn new things quickly, and both of those combined, she urged me to apply to this position, and she actually served as my reference. So I applied, and I got the job. So it
Without
goes
any HR or
without
defense.
any HR experience, without any defense contracting experience. Now, I will tell you my college degree is in public affairs, so I think that did appeal to the defense contractor. I did go to college in DC, and I just moved to Florida from DC, but I had zero HR skills. Um, but again, it goes back to the networking and transferable skills. And it also goes to show you always show up for work, willing to learn new things, take on new tasks, always do your best. I was working on a temporary FEMA grant, answering phone calls for the Red Cross disaster relief. But was it the most glamorous job? No. But I showed up every single day, and I showed my boss that I was willing to take on whatever she threw my way, and it literally paid off, and it branched me into a whole new career. So for anyone out there who wants to take a leap into a new industry or try something new, um, again, think about your transferable skills, highlight those on your resume. Network. I know you agree with this part, Sue. Network, 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 right? Networking is one of the most valuable things you can do for your career. You should build authentic relationships with the contacts in the industry that you want to target. The hidden job market, which is unadvertised jobs, it's a real thing, and networking can significantly give you a leg up on finding those hidden jobs in the hidden job market. You can also schedule informational interviews. That's a big thing these days. Seek out some contacts in the industry you're looking or wanting to get into, and schedule a coffee chat, lunch, take them out to lunch. You'll really get a firsthand look and feel for what it's like to work in that industry. And then during those informational interviews, you may get some insider tips firsthand that, going back to boosting your confidence, and it can give you a leg up to get outside your comfort zone.
No, that's brilliant. And I think it's really important to also mention that an informational interview is not your opportunity to ask someone for a job. It is
Right.
literally an
Mhm.
opportunity for you to talk to somebody about how, hey, what's the company culture like? What's a day in your life? Like, is this a good fit for you? Like, is it a good fit for military spouse life? Whatever it is, it
Mhm.
is literally an informational interview. I think that cannot be underscored enough, because I think sometimes people forget what that means, and they just think it's 15 minutes for me to pitch myself for a job. It is
Right.
absolutely not.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And always treat an informational interview the same way post like a job interview, and send a thank you letter.
Oh, that's a great tip. That's a
Mhm.
great tip. Do you recommend via email or hard copy?
Via today via email for an informational interview. Hard copies. It, Email first, email within 24 hours. Sending a hard copy later, absolutely. It shows that you really cared for their time. You find their
Awesome.
time valuable. But so both, to answer your question, do both.
You don't know. You might one day end up becoming colleagues. You never
Right.
know. And so I mentioned that Amy was one of our experts, and she kind of took some time off because, happy of all happy things, you guys had a baby. And so you took some time off when you had your daughter. I mean, how did you stay current in your field and keep up with your industry so that you were able to pick up your business again when you were ready? I mean, happily, we were chatting before we got on here, and she says that her business is up and running again, and she's already booked all the way through August.
Right,
So
right.
how did you do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it is a juggling act for sure. But I'm happy I was in the position I was in to be able to take that time off. Staying at home was wonderful. Again, it goes back to networking, even as a business owner. So I was able to develop a genuine rapport with other resume writers, and I added a referral source of income to my business, which let me take this time off. I also kept my memberships active, and that's one thing for entrepreneurs and job seekers. Especially if you want to jump into a new industry, seek out professional associations in your new industry. I did not mention that earlier, but that's another excellent tip. And that's what I did. I kept my memberships active in the National Resume Writer Association and Resume Writers Academy. And I was able to remain abreast of current and emerging resume trends, even though I wasn't working full time. And then I did continue working with some previous customers during my time off, who wanted some updates to their resumes. So I was able to put the new practices into place from those emerging resume trends, and I saw positive results. So that way I knew there wouldn't be a huge learning curve, learning gap when I returned to the workforce. And yeah, and I started back up last week, and I'm already scheduled a couple months out, which is really exciting. So yeah, it's networking. Networking is key.
But you also planned, like you were very diligent in planning your on-ramp. Like you knew you were going to come back to it. And so you just kept current. And I'm sure as it got closer to the time that you thought you were going to come back, then you started implementing some of the, no, I think that's brilliant. So I think the big takeaway there is have a strategy for,
Uh,
maintaining your currency, and also like what's it going to look like when you come back. That's awesome.
and
Um,
also, one other thing to add to that too is that I partnered with other resume writers in my field. I didn't view them as competitors. I viewed them as people who could help me, and developed a recurring revenue stream from that too. So that's another great tip too. Like don't view someone necessarily as your competitor, because they, even if they're in the same field as you, they can help you out.
yeah, there might be synergies. Yep.
Mhm.
And so I think everybody out there is probably like, oh, this is all well and fine, but what's in it for me? So I think that they would probably send me comments if I did not ask if you have
Mhm.
top tips for military spouses when it comes to their resumes.
Always have top tips, and I can go on forever, but I will leave it short, as short as I can, in talking about resumes. Um, I see so many resumes, especially military spouses, use the chronological resume format. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I've most recently done, step by step by step by step. No. The emerging trends are what's called hybrid or combination resumes, which show off again your transferable skills, plus your work history. And the I'd say every company these days use applicant tracking systems, which are electronic databases. And if you use the chronological resume format, you may be missing, no matter where you graduated college from. If you have a PhD, you are like the top 10 in your field. If you don't use the words associated with the job you are applying to, these applicant tracking systems are going to put your resume into a black hole. So using this new hybrid resume format will really help you stand out from the competition. Um, I'll leave it at that. I could go on. I'm happy to answer any other questions. If anybody has any specific resume questions or general resume questions, feel free to drop Sue and I a line, and happy to
Yeah.
answer.
And I think she means it. So, I mean, if you have a
Mhm.
question for Amy, like drop it in the comments. And then I will make sure she gets those questions. She's very generous with answering questions because, we post them for everybody. So it's like, if you're asking a question that's relevant to everyone, it's good for the community. So thank you so much, Amy. This was so much
Yeah,
fun.
it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Sue.
Absolutely. We'll have to do this again soon. Maybe over the summit. You'll have to come and, we'll have to visit then. But
That'd be awesome.
I'm counting on it. So thank you all for joining us. I hope to see you here next week. And I want to thank our friends at USAA for making these conversations possible. We were having the best time highlighting all these like amazing military spouses. And with that, I will say have a great week, and we will see you here next week. Bye, guys.